Topic 2, Lesson 5, The Zealots. In the charged atmosphere of first-century Roman-occupied Judea, a group of fiercely devoted individuals emerged, shaping one of the most turbulent chapters of Jewish history. Known as the Zealots, they were not merely a political faction, but a movement powered by a profound religious conviction and an uncompromising vision of a free Israel under the sovereignty of God. Their story unfolded amidst a backdrop of pervasive Roman oppression, where the sight of Roman soldiers patrolling sacred streets and tax collectors extorting from impoverished citizens served as daily reminders of subjugation. The Zealots were defined by their unwavering belief that divine law was supreme and that submission to Rome was not only political enslavement, but spiritual betrayal. Their actions, both revered and reviled, carved a path of rebellion that clashed with Roman might and Jewish division alike. The roots of the Zealot movement stretched back to the Roman conquest of Judea in 63 BCE. With the annexation of the region, Judea became a tributary state, its people burdened by heavy taxes, the imposition of pagan practices, and the desecration of Jewish traditions. For many Jews, these affronts were compounded by the complicity of local rulers, such as the Herodian dynasty, who maintained power by serving as intermediaries between Rome and the Jewish populace. It was in this cauldron of resentment and humiliation that the Zealots arose. Their very name, derived from the Greek zelotes, meaning zealous or ardent, captured their fiery determination to uphold the sanctity of the Torah and the sovereignty of God. Unlike other Jewish sects such as the Essenes, who withdrew from society to pursue spiritual purity, or the Pharisees, who sought to influence Jewish life through legal and religious interpretation, the Zealots believed that liberation required immediate and forceful action. Their ideology found its earliest champion in Judas of Galilee, a charismatic figure who emerged following the death of Herod the Great in 4 BCE. Judas openly defied Roman authority, declaring that allegiance was owed to God alone and condemning the payment of taxes to Caesar as a blasphemous act. Though his rebellion was quickly suppressed, Judas planted the seeds of resistance that would inspire future generations. The Zealots embraced his message, convinced that divine intervention would come only if they demonstrated their faith through action. The emergence of the Zealots paralleled the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth, who preached in the same troubled land. Both movements arose in response to the suffering of the Jewish people under Roman rule, but their approaches to that suffering could not have been more different. Jesus proclaimed a kingdom not of this world, teaching his followers to love their enemies, turn the other cheek, and resist evil through nonviolence and forgiveness. The Zealots, by contrast, viewed such teachings as dangerously passive, if not outright betrayal. To them, Roman rule was an affront to God's authority that demanded immediate eradication. Their fervent belief in violent resistance made their path incompatible with Jesus' message of peace and reconciliation. This tension is exemplified in Simon the Zealot, one of Jesus' 12 apostles. Although the Gospels provide little information about Simon, his designation as a zealot suggests that Jesus' teachings had the power to attract even those steeped in the ideology of rebellion. Simon's inclusion among the apostles underscores the radical inclusivity of Jesus' ministry, as well as the potential for transformative change within those who followed him. The Zealots were relentless in their pursuit of freedom, often operating in secret cells to carry out acts of sabotage and guerrilla warfare. Among them, the Sicarii, a faction named for the small curved daggers, sicae, they wielded, specialized in targeted assassinations. Disguised among crowds during festivals or market days, the Sicarii would strike swiftly at Roman officials or Jewish collaborators, blending back into the throngs before they could be apprehended. Their attacks were calculated to instill fear and foment rebellion among the populace. To the Zealots, even fellow Jews who sought to compromise with Rome were traitors to the covenant with God. This uncompromising stance often led to internal divisions within the Jewish community, with rival factions vying for influence and accusing one another of undermining the struggle for freedom. By the time of the Great Jewish Revolt, 66 to 73 CE, the Zealots had become a leading force in the resistance against Rome. Their call to arms resonated with many Jews who had grown weary of Roman oppression. In the early stages of the revolt, Jewish forces achieved surprising victories, capturing Jerusalem and repelling Roman legions. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the Zealots' vision of liberation might become reality. However, the rebellion was plagued by infighting. The Zealots often clashed with other Jewish factions, including the moderate Pharisees and the aristocratic Sadducees, weakening their collective ability to resist Rome. These internal conflicts proved disastrous when the Roman legions, under the command of Vespasian and later his son Titus, launched a devastating counteroffensive. The culmination of the revolt came in 70 CE with the siege and destruction of Jerusalem. The temple, the spiritual heart of Judaism, was reduced to rubble, and thousands of Jews were killed or enslaved. The Zealots, refusing to surrender, retreated to isolated strongholds like Masada, where they made their final stand. According to tradition, the defenders of Masada chose mass suicide over capture, embodying the Zealots' ethos of uncompromising defiance to the very end. Though the Zealots' rebellion ended in defeat, their legacy endures as a powerful symbol of resistance and faith. To some, they are heroes who exemplified courage and devotion to God's law in the face of overwhelming odds. To others, they are cautionary figures whose extremism led to unnecessary suffering and the destruction of the temple. For early Christians, the Zealots served as a striking contrast to the teachings of Jesus. Where the Zealots sought freedom through the sword, Jesus offered a vision of liberation through love and forgiveness. Their stories together underscore the diversity of responses to oppression in first-century Judea and the profound choices faced by those living under Roman rule. The Zealots' story resonates even today, a reminder of the complexities of resistance, the cost of unyielding zeal, and the enduring tension between faith, identity, and the struggle for justice.